Hello, everybody. Welcome to Bird Notice. Billy here. Leading off, Freddie Gonzalez is named the Braves' new third base coach. Cooper Hummel is DFA'd. And All-Star voting has begun. But Ryan, what episode number is this?
This is episode number 81, which has been worn by three Orioles, none of whom I remember. Connor Green and Sean Anderson in 2021 and Denyi Reyes in 2022. All are pitchers, so I've turned this into a quiz for you. Remember, the options are Green, Anderson, or Reyes. All right? You ready? 5 questions. Number 1, who had the lowest ERA in their time with the O's at 2.35?
What's Green's first name?
Connor.
Connor Green. I'm going to say Anderson.
Nope, the answer is Reyes.
Okay.
Number 2, who is the only one to get credited with a win in their time with the Orioles?
Also Anderson.
That was Green.
Damn.
Number 3, which of the three did not make a start for the Orioles?
I'm going to say Reyes. I remember him with the Tides.
That was Anderson.
Damn.
The point of this is nobody knows anything. Number 4, which of the three played for the most teams with 8?
This is Anderson.
You're right. You got one. And number 5, which of the three had the most appearances for the Orioles with 22?
This is Anderson.
That was Green.
Damn, I don't remember Green at all. I didn't even remember his first name.
I don't remember any of the guys, but that's why I made a quiz, because it's silly, and none of them did much at all. So
is it Green with an E? Yep.
And he spells Connor with an E, too, which is kind of weird.
Yeah, that's his whole problem.
That's why he stunk.
Yeah, I don't remember him at all. The Dodgers picked him up, though. Oh, he played in 2021. Okay.
Yeah, 2 were in 2021, and the other, Reyes, was in 2022. But none of them spent more than one season with the O's, and they were all very forgettable. Reyes had a decent ERA, but he pitched 5 innings or something.
Green's ERA was high in AAA even. It was 7/7 with the Tides in 2021. Yeah, 2021 I was still kind of checked out from COVID a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fair. So that's our 81. 3 nobodies.
We'll see who we got next week for 82.
Yeah.
All right, so we're just going to dive into some recaps right away. We have something special later on that'll take up some time. So we got Tuesday, June 3rd, the Orioles at the Mariners. We got Sugano versus George Kirby. Colton Cowser was activated before the game after going 8 for 20 on his minor league rehab stint with Aberdeen and Norfolk. It's good to have him back.
Yes, it is, especially with some of the dudes they've been running out into the outfield lately.
I couldn't believe how bad the outfield situation got this year. I was complaining about O'Hearn being in the outfield, for April, but come June, I was like, can we get O'Hearn out in the outfield? These other guys suck.
Right.
So Rutschman, Gunnar, and O'Hearn reached in the first with 3 consecutive one-out singles. Urias scored on Adley's sac fly. There's a good throw from Leody Taveras in right field that Adley was able to slid outside of the plate and beat the tag. Adley was then seen by the trainer in the dugout. He was appearing to blink repeatedly. I was afraid he might have, reactivated his concussion.
I was going to say, might still be concussed.
Right.
Yeah, Cowser's first at bat back, he flew out to end the inning. Second inning, the Orioles got a couple singles, but were unable to capitalize, and the Mariners got on the board in the third with 2 outs. Rowdy Tellez hit a home run off Sugano and made it 1-1.
Seeing Rowdy Tellez made me think of Renato Nunez.
I remember him.
Yeah, so I did the side-by-side thing. Their numbers are almost identical. And Tellez keeps getting jobs. Nunez is still only 31 and hasn't played affiliated ball in 5 years. Wow. The only thing I can think of is Tellez is left-handed. That's why he keeps getting jobs. But he's basically Renato Nunez, who I don't think any Orioles fans miss.
Nunez was pretty solid in, what was it, the 2020 season?
He hit over 30 home runs. I think it was 2021. He was pretty much the most memorable thing of 2021. Maybe it was 2019.
2019, he had 31 homers and 90 RBIs. Still was a OPS plus of 101, so kind of sucked, but had good numbers.
Adley, Gunnar, and Ahern are at it again in the fifth with 3 more base hits in a row. Ahern reached base for the 3rd time in as many at-bats. Adley scored his 2nd run of the game to put them up 2-1, but the inning would end when Ramon Urias hits a 103-mile-per-hour line drive off of George Kirby's face.
Ugh. Yeah.
He was able to get just enough glove on it to keep it from being a catastrophe, but yikes.
Yeah, regardless, it did still spell the end of George Kirby's night, and Edward Bazardo came in. Top of the 6th, the leadoff batter was Colton Cowser. 1-1 pitch he took deep for a home run to the opposite field, so a nice welcome back for him and a 3-1 lead for the O's.
Yeah, Bazardo has appeared in 47 games the last 2 years for Seattle. Remember, he played 2 games for the Orioles in 2023? I can't remember. It was either last year or 2023, but
I would have forgotten about that completely.
yeah, he's found a home in Seattle. The O's would score 2 off Colin Snyder in the 9th. Kjerstad hit an RBI double. That was his 10th extra base hit of the season, his 17th RBI. Jordan Adams pinch ran for Kjerstad, and he scored on Jackson Holliday's single, and that gave us a 5-1 Orioles victory.
Yeah, Sugano had a good outing. And I had said before this series that the O's would get swept by Seattle, and that was not the case after this.
Yeah, I gave Sugano the 3rd star, 90 pitches over 7 innings. Only one of them was bad. Adley, 2nd star, 3 for 5, 2 runs scored. He had a 12-pitch at-bat in the 9th inning. That's when Adley's at his best, when he's just fouling off pitches, taking the right pitches, not watching them go right down the middle of the plate. He used to have an amazing eye. Hopefully he can rediscover that.
He does appear to have turned a corner lately, and I hope it's something that'll be long-term.
And then the 1st star, Cowser, home run in his first game back. He's now 8 for 20 in his career against Seattle with 2 doubles and 7 walks. Since he debuted on July 5th, 2023, in games he's played, the Orioles have a .590 winning percentage and a .496 winning percentage without him.
Man, he's like Ken Griffey or something. I don't know.
Yeah. And then Urias was the only starter without a hit. And that brought us to Wednesday, June 4th. We got Cade Povich versus Emerson Hancock. Hancock was taken 4 spots after Heston Kjerstad in the 2020 draft.
Yeah, I kind of forgot about him, to be honest. I remember him getting drafted, and he was supposed to be really good, and I didn't even realize he was up in the majors at this point.
Yeah, I think that's just pitchers take a little more seasoning sometimes than position players.
Mhm.
But yeah, he looked pretty good in this one for the most part.
Yeah, Povich and Hancock kind of dueled, despite the O's getting some runners in scoring position in the top of the 3rd. Rutschman would ground out to end that inning, and that was the first threat they made. The Mariners were the first on the board in the bottom of the 4th. Ground rule double from Cal Raleigh, who's just having a ridiculous season. Julio Rodriguez singles to move Raleigh over to 3rd, and then Randy Arozarena hit a sac fly to score the big dumper, and it was 1-0 Mariners.
Yeah, Kjerstad embarrassed himself again in the outfield on that Raleigh double where he awkwardly slid into the wall. Thankfully, he wasn't injured, but it just
looked like he was.
Yeah, I cannot believe how bad he is on every level. I just feel bad for talking him up. I said his defense wasn't as bad.
I feel bad for myself
horrific.
having to watch that. I don't feel bad for him. That was awful.
Yeah, he's not a major leaguer. I think I could say that. Top 6, the O's were scoreless until Adley Rutschman sent a Hancock sinker into the seats, and then this game was tied up at 1.
Bottom of the 6th, Povich hit the leadoff batter and then walked J.P. Crawford. So with runners on 1st and 2nd, that brought up Cal Raleigh. He was able to hit a single down the line. Williamson scored. Crawford moved to 3rd. Cal Raleigh did end up getting thrown out, so kind of threw the O's a bone there, but that put the Mariners in the lead 2-1.
Yeah, nice throw by Gunnar to home plate. There was some debate. Call was overturned. Urias and Maya walk in the 7th. Gabe Spire had struck out 3 of the 4 batters he faced, but he'd walk Urias, Vargas comes in. He walks Mayo, so there's 2 on and 2 out for Kerstad. He actually doesn't roll over. He hits an excuse me triple that rolls around the corner. Urias scores. Mayo scores all the way from first base. And Kerstad's 2 RBI triple puts the Orioles up. That's the difference. 3-2 win.
Yeah, Bautista came in for the second consecutive day, got the save this time. I would say this was a surprising win. I did not see the Orioles making that comeback.
No, and Bautista was pitching to Roddy Tellez for the final out, and he hit a towering fly ball. And as soon as he hit it, I got nervous. Not that it was going to be a home run, but that Mateo was in center field. So when I saw Jordan Adams standing there, I was like, oh, thank God. Because, he made a routine catch to look like a routine catch, but if Mateo would have been out there, who knows what would have happened.
Right. Yeah, the O's had 4 hits to Seattle's 5. So this was not a very offensive game, but a win's a win. 2 wins in a row against a better team on the road. I'll take it.
Yep, the Orioles have a 2.11 rotation ERA over the past 10 games. Kerstad, I gave the 3rd star for the 2 hits and the game-winning RBI. He had half the team's hits in this game. The Orioles, as a team, had 5 walks to their 4 hits.
I guess that's good that they're getting on base.
Yeah, 2nd star, Cade Povich pitched into the 6th. 4 hits, 2 earned runs, 1 walk, 5 strikeouts, 86 pitches, 54 strikes. If he does that every time, great.
Yeah, they probably could have let him go a little bit longer too, 86 pitches.
Yeah, and then the 3rd star I gave to, I don't know what I wrote here. So I'm just going to say John Mabry for maybe fixing Adley, I guess. I don't know.
Okay, we can give him the credit without knowing. That's fine.
Yeah. It lines up well.
Yeah, sure.
He showed up and Adley started hitting. So Thursday, Zach Eflin versus Brian Wu. You know who Brian Wu reminded me of? And this is an extreme example. Not his arm action, but his actual wind-up.
Nothing's coming to me.
I think it's Pedro Martinez like.
I knew it would be extreme since you said that, but okay.
Yeah, not the whip of Pedro's arm, but like the leg kick and the size. Brian Wu's kind of small.
Hey, maybe he grew up watching Pedro or something. I don't know.
Yeah, but Wu would walk the 9th batter, Maverick Hanley, to start the 3rd. Hanley would work his way around the bases. There were 2 wild pitches thrown in the inning by Wu, and Hanley would score, so the Orioles take an early lead.
Bottom of the 3rd, the Mariners would get on the board. J.P. Crawford led off with a single. With 2 outs, he stole second base before Julio Rodriguez would strike out. And Cal Raleigh came to the plate, single to left field, scores Polanco, and ties the game for the Mariners.
Yeah, Kyle Raleigh was pretty annoying this series. It's one thing to keep hearing his name around the media, like Kyle Raleigh's doing this good this year. Then when you see it, you're like, holy shit, this guy's Babe Ruth all of a sudden.
And he's a switch hitter, so you just can't get away from him.
The Mariners would strike again in the 5th. Crawford set the table with a leadoff double that made Kerstad look like an idiot again. Then it's Kyle Raleigh's turn to make Kerstad look like an idiot for the 3rd time in 2 games. He attempted to catch his 24th home run ball where he was nowhere close to it when he jumped.
Yeah, I'm not going to say he should have caught that ball, but that attempt was just terrible. He looked so unathletic on that.
Yeah, it would have been better off not making an attempt because the attempt just exposed how poorly you had misplayed this thing.
Right. It didn't fall that far over the wall. I think a good outfielder could have had a play, but he just looked like the kid in gym class who gets picked last. It was so bad.
Yeah. They use him as an advertisement today for the T-shirt that they're giving away, and I was like, that makes me not want to go to the game.
Was it a Kerstad shirt or just that he was wearing it in the picture?
Yeah, no, he was just wearing it. It was for the beach.
Okay.
Yeah. But Brian Wu was cruising in the 6th until Holiday led off with a walk. Adley Rutschman made him pay with the shortest home run of his career, 337-foot 2-run blast. And then Gunnar went back to back. That was the first time Adley and Gunnar went back to back. That's kind of crazy.
First time ever?
Yeah.
Wow.
I think so.
Gunners was more of a no doubter, but that was crazy. Like another game where it's getting, later into the second half of the game, the O's are losing. We're like, well, chalk this one up as a loss, and then all of a sudden, they're ahead.
Yeah, they won this one 4-3, 6th win in a row. I'm starting to get a little excited at this point, but I'm still like in reality. I wanted to see how they did against the A's in this coming series, but before we do that, 3 stars. Number 3, Eflin. He pitched like a staff leader here. Quality start, 7 strikeouts. The bullpen got a star. Aiken, Kittredge, and Baker. 3 innings pitched, no hits, 5 strikeouts, 2 holds, and a save. This was the second save for Brian Baker. That's a new career high.
Yeah, you had mentioned making him closer, and there it is.
Yeah, just 33 pitches, 25 strikes by those 3 to get the final 9 outs that they needed. And then the first star, former Mariners draft pick, Adley Rutschman. 3 for 4, 2 RBI. Raised his average 22 points this series. Adley was 5 for 56 before going 6 for 12 against 3 pretty good pitchers.
Right. Yeah, I did not see this sweep coming at all. I think I joked that they would get swept. So.
Yeah, this is the second time this season that the Mariners were swept at home. I like how much I think Manzolino appreciates good defense. Cowser didn't start this game, but Manzolino put him in the 7th. Adams came in late the night before to make the final catch on Telez's flyout. I'm not saying Hyde never made defensive changes late in games, but I mean, there was a game earlier this year where Hyde put O'Hearn in the outfield for like the final 3 innings. I was like, what are you doing?
It's not the time to do that.
No, so I think Manzolino just appreciates little things that Hyde would routinely overlook.
That's fair. Now we're going to be joined by a couple of very special guests. If you're listening to this, you're probably aware that the Orioles made their first trip this week to Sacramento to play the formerly Oakland Athletics. And here with us, we have 2 generations of Oakland Athletics fans. We have Jim and Chris. Hello, welcome to Bird Notice.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Great to be here.
My first question for both of you is, what is your origin as an A's fan? How did you become an A's fan, and how has it lasted this long?
Sure. I'll start because I think I have a longer history. I was born and raised in Oakland and was here when the A's moved in 1968 from Kansas City. So I've been following the team ever since. I actually had the opportunity to work for the team in 1985 and 86. I was director of publications, and I worked on the team's media guide, game program, yearbook, and special projects, including a 32-page tabloid newspaper that came out every 3 weeks during the baseball season. And so I've been following the team really since they arrived in Oakland in 1968.
All righty. Thank you, Jim. Chris, how about you?
Yeah, so obviously, Jim's my dad. So we grew up A's fans and had a lot of great memories going to Oakland Alameda County Coliseum. And, birthdays, Father's Days, Mother's Days, family gatherings, all things along the way. Great games, growing up through high school when Moneyball was the big thing. That was my freshman year of high school. So, we've been to a lot of those like really, really important A's games, and, we stayed true to being A's fans and never even, flirting with across the bay with the Giants. So a lot of pride in being A's fans.
I bet. What would you say, Chris, you mentioned a couple specific things, but I'll ask both of you, is there like 1 or 2 favorite memories you have as A's fans?
I'll start. I was there. My mom took me and a few other family friends. We went to the World Series games in 72, 3, and 4. We went to each and every one of those games in Oakland. And those are great memories. They won the series at home in 73 and 74. and being able to run on the field in '74 after they beat the Dodgers was quite a thrill. And then when I was working for the A's, there was a fantasy camp, and I got to go to that on the premise that I would write a story about it, which I did. But the highlight from that was I got a hit off of my boyhood idol, Catfish Hunter, in the fantasy game. And I think I'm still smiling whenever I think about that.
I bet you are. Chris, how about you?
Yeah, so we were at the 20th game of the streak in September of 2002, and that was a big one. Game 4 in the ALDS against the Tigers in 2012 is a big one. We saw Catfish Hunter's jersey retired, Ricky's number retired, Dave Stewart's number retired, like all these big things we always made sure to go to. So, I mean, there's too many, but those are some that come up vividly. So a lot of history there.
Now, Jim, you said Catfish Hunter was your favorite player when you were younger. Does that hold true today, or has somebody surpassed him after that?
No, nobody has surpassed him. People have come close. But I've just liked his demeanor, his humble upbringing in North Carolina, country boy, and he was just a great pitcher. He just threw the ball. He threw strikes. He had great control. I love Dave Stewart and even non-A's, Fernando Valenzuela. There are a lot of pitchers that I've admired, and I'm a fan of their work. Greg Maddux is a genius as a pitcher. But for me, it's always been Catfish, and I think it always will be.
We were driving through North Carolina some years back, and there was a sign, Catfish Hunter Museum, next right in Hertford, North Carolina. So we took the right and went to it. It's incredible. The little town he's from, calling it a one stoplight town is overdoing it. The museum is in the Chamber of Commerce, and they just have all his like action figures throughout the years and any appearance he had in media that, was in a magazine or whatever. His grave site is actually down the street. It has an A's logo on it and a Yankees logo on it.
Yeah, I've read about that. I would love to visit it sometime.
Yeah, it might be on YouTube.
I remember reading, we talked about this book, Lords of the Realm, I read about kind of the history of labor in baseball, between the relationship between the players and the owners. And there was a decent section about Catfish Hunter's free agency because he was kind of the first star free agent. And rather than go set up shop in like New York or Oakland or Chicago or somewhere, they had all the teams come to that little tiny town he was from. And his agent, I believe, was a local guy, and the one restaurant around the corner was just filled with all of the big names in baseball because they were all in town trying to get Catfish Hunter to sign.
Yeah, that one restaurant is right next to the Chamber of Commerce where that museum is held.
Okay.
That's basically the entire town.
Right. Chris, how about you? Favorite athletic?
So when I was a very young man, Jose Canseco was the guy. Not honestly sure why. I don't know if Dad remembers why, but he was always the guy. And then when I played baseball growing up, I was a third baseman, so I liked Eric Chavez and then Matt Chapman after that. And but Jose was big time when I was younger.
I mean, you probably liked him for hitting home runs and being fast and
just being a maniac, yeah.
Being a character, right.
Yeah, he was the face of baseball for a good couple of years there, emerging as one, and then it just didn't stick.
Yeah.
He was a sensation. So that was the time when I was working for the team, and I followed him through his minor leagues and his ascension from Double A to Triple A, and then at the end of the '85 season to Oakland. And yeah, he was the talk of baseball, and he could hit the ball farther. He was very brash. He was very confident. And of course, it didn't take him long to be a 40-40, the first 40-40 man. So he dominated for several years.
Jim, I was going to ask you, maybe you can talk a little about some of the guys that you might have gotten to know a little bit about during your time with the team? You have any interesting stories that you're able to share?
I got to interview several of them while I was there, and then shortly, even after I left, I did freelance work for them. So I was interviewing players. So I interviewed Carney Lansford and Dave Stewart and Mike Davis and Alfredo Griffin. And I wouldn't say I got to know them, but I did have a field pass, and I could be. I had total access to the Coliseum, so I was around them, but I didn't, try to, intrude on their space. But you find out that they're really just guys. They're really just like the rest of us. They go crazy for music, and whoever controlled the clubhouse music, that was a big responsibility. And some of the guys are very quiet. And some of them are loud and boisterous and maybe a little too full of themselves. But I had several good encounters with them. I was fortunate to interview some of them at their homes, and they were very welcoming to me, and let me into their space. And I met some of their family members if they happened to be there that day when I was doing interviews. So it really wasn't like work. I mean, I was getting paid to do what I would have done for free. And I really enjoyed that, being able to do that. My previous job to working for the A's was covering high school sports on a local newspaper. And I went from doing that one week to the next week, sitting in the Coliseum dugout interviewing Sparky Anderson when he was managing the Tigers. And my world in that sense changed very quickly and very dramatically. And I really enjoyed it quite a bit.
That is very cool. Now, you were there, you said like mid 80s. Team didn't make the playoffs in that time, if I'm looking, but then very quickly became like the dominant AL team. So did you kind of see that coming? Is that something you thought might have been the case, seeing maybe some of the younger guys, or was that kind of surprising?
Yeah, a lot of people did, because the A's had 3 consecutive Rookies of the Year with Canseco and Walt Weiss and Mark McGuire. And so you could see the young talent that was emerging. And the other big thing that people saw was the change in ownership. It took a little while from when Charlie Finley sold the team to a Haas family, but the Haas family really had a holistic approach to putting a good product on the field, but also treating their staff well. It was a very honorable organization to work for. So they were just about doing things the right way. They were very deliberate. They were very thoughtful. And Mr. Haas, Wally Haas, the principal owner, was very quiet, but really wanted to buy the team to make it a community asset and turn it around, because under Finley's ownership, it really wasn't that way. Finley was very smart in many ways, but he really didn't connect with the community. And Mr. Haas wanted to do things a different way. So you could see just a lot of things were happening the right way. And so that success, you did see it coming. And of course, they did win the World Series in '89 when they beat the Giants.
Right. The famous earthquake year, right?
Yeah, I remember watching that in real time. The TV cut out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was quite a dramatic occurrence here in the Bay Area. Obviously, it literally shook everybody to their knees, and we're very fortunate that a lot more damage wasn't done. But it was a unique experience to be a part of, and be able to talk about now.
So I have a question for both of you. I think we'll get a little bit more into ownership and build on what you were just saying, but the stadium itself kind of had a bad rap the past several years. So my question is was it really as bad as they said? Or was it, I know they made some modifications when the Raiders moved in, but it didn't look like a terrible place to be a fan. But a lot of the horror stories were about like the clubhouses and stuff. So what was your opinion on the Coliseum toward the end, I guess?
Yeah, so my opinion is it is a giant concrete pit that is terrible, but it's my giant concrete pit that's terrible, and I love it. And yeah, what they did, when they built Mount Davis in the late '90s, to bring the Raiders back from LA and all that. Like, it ruined the character. I scarcely remember, before that, but I mean, again, we've been going since I was born in '88, and so I do have a few memories of before Mount Davis, or at least during the construction, and yeah, it absolutely wrecked the character, and yeah, like, no one's saying, it's not Camden Yards. I've never been to Camden Yards, and I would love to go, but it's definitely like, in terms of a baseball viewing experience, the best part of it is the fans. And yeah, you are as far away from the field as possible, I think, in any stadium. Like it's really, it's right there. So, but I love it. I wasn't ready to leave it. And yeah, it stinks that, because it was absolutely unique.
I caught a old game recently, and I saw it without Mount Davis for the first time in probably, I don't know, 20 years, and it broke my brain a little bit. It made me realize how much of a monstrosity just plopping a bunch of concrete and seats in the middle of that, what used to be a view of Oakland, that you could see past the stadium, mountains and stuff and trees, and then
Wow.
that was just gone.
Yeah, you could see the Oakland Hills. That was a nice view. And you have to remember the time when the Coliseum was built. I think it opened in 1966, and that was the time when stadiums were built like that. They were multi-purpose for football and baseball typically, and we have hardly any of those anymore. But if you look at Riverfront Stadium, and Three Rivers and Veteran Stadiums that were also baseball and football, none of them are still in use anymore. And there's a reason that type of stadium that was built at that time just, we've evolved past that. Now, the sad thing is that, some improvements could have been made to the Coliseum. The addition of Mount Davis was awful on many fronts, but even so, there still could have been additional improvements made, and ownership and the city and county of Oakland and Alameda. There's plenty of blame to go around there. By and large, there weren't significant improvements made, and that could have made the fan experience better.
So, kind of to build on that, and the elephant in the room that we haven't talked about is just the fact of the A's current situation, and they appear to have left Oakland for good, but probably, with the eventual destination of Vegas. So I'm just curious about your thoughts. I'm sure they're not good about John Fisher and the ownership, but could you kind of give Orioles fans like myself, who hasn't really followed the situation that closely, a brief synopsis of how we got to where we're at today?
Sure, I'll start with some thoughts about that. So, like I mentioned, there is some culpability. I think it doesn't all fall on John Fisher, but I think most of it does. I'll be very upfront about that. But the city of Oakland and Alameda County, bear some responsibility too. But basically, what happened is, John Fisher just stopped investing in the team, and I don't think he really ever invested much in the team after he bought it. He would gut the roster. He would trade players as they were getting close to arbitration or free agency. And so whenever we did have Matt Olson and Matt Chapman and others as well, they would just be gone. And we get a handful of prospects back, and sometimes they worked out and sometimes they didn't. He refused to do much in the way of improving the stadium experience, as many owners do for their stadiums. And simultaneously, he raised prices, believe it or not, during this time when, after Matt Olson was traded, prices were increased. And not just, by a modest amount, but by a significant amount. And everybody saw it really for what it was. It was a transparent playbook that he was putting together and was later approved unanimously by the MLB owners. So that is a short answer as to kind of how we got here, and actions that were taken or weren't taken to kind of get us to this point. And then maybe we could talk about this a little bit down the road, but the commissioner's role in this, I think, warrants some discussion as well.
I had a follow-up to that. When did you start getting nervous that they could actually leave Oakland after? Was it before seeing the Warriors and the Raiders leave, and to some extent the 49ers even leaving San Francisco for Santa Clara? Like, when were you like, oh shit, I think they're gonna leave?
Yeah, for me, it wasn't until Dave Cavill announced, and I'll use air quotes, the binding agreement that he said he had struck with Las Vegas. So we had heard that the A's were going to go on a parallel track between Oakland and Vegas to try to come up with a new stadium proposal. And then Cavill announced this binding agreement. And that, for me, was really when I thought, well, this really might happen. And I'm honestly still not convinced that it's going to happen. But it's interesting about that binding agreement that Dave Cavill announced, because it was less than 2 weeks later that he announced another binding agreement for another parcel in Las Vegas. So his credibility was shot quite early in this whole process. But that was when, for me, it looked like this might be a possibility to happen.
Chris, what about you? When did you think like, oh, this might be real?
So the threat of, leaving Oakland it's felt, kind of out there for a while, but yeah, it similar to what Dad said was, when they announced that binding agreement, but then we also don't have any reason to believe Fisher will follow through or get the deal done or whatever. And, they've allegedly broken ground quietly. They don't have the funding in place. They don't have investors. They don't know what they're doing. I texted Dad that morning when the ESPN, that was the first outlet I saw it from, was, all right, the A's bought a plot in Vegas, and then that changed and kept changing. And, my hot take is by spring training 2027, we'll be talking about where the A's going to play back in Oakland. Like, Sacramento's a crap show. Vegas is not happening. But, it got real fast. But then you're like, all right, well, let's take a minute and have a breath and look at who's involved. And everyone's an idiot. So we'll, I think, end up coming back here, frankly.
Now, that's an interesting theory that I've also heard from other people, because, like you mentioned, it doesn't seem like they had a lot of things actually firmed up and signed on at this point. So do you think that is, I guess you did just say you think it's a possibility. What percent possibility would you say that the A's don't end up in Vegas? It could be anywhere else, but what are your thoughts?
That they don't end up in Vegas is 90%.
Okay.
Whether they come back to Oakland, that's 50%. But they're not going to Vegas.
What do you think the chances are they actually get stuck in Sacramento and maybe sold to the Kings owner? I'm blanking on his name.
Ranadive, right?
Yeah, Vivek Ranadive.
Yeah, I don't have a good one for you there. I think the most likely, the plurality, but not majority, is that they end up back in Oakland.
Jim, do your thoughts differ at all?
Only in the percentage. No, I still think there's a really good chance they'll end up in Oakland. Joe Lacob, who owns the Warriors, who owns the Valkyries, has a standing offer. He's expressed his interest in buying the team and getting the stadium done. You probably know that he privately funded Chase Center in San Francisco. And the Warriors are now the NBA's most valued franchise. I think it's $7 billion. So he knows how to get things done. And, John Fisher doesn't. With one phone call, this could all go away and be resolved. I still don't know what the MLB owners approved when they unanimously approved this relocation without a credible study of why Vegas is a good market for MLB, whether that's through relocation or even expansion. What empirical studies have been done to show that that's a viable market? Number one. Number two, a basic thing when you do a relocation or an expansion is to do a season ticket drive. To my knowledge, there hasn't been one done for Las Vegas. And you can't believe what the A's say about tickets anyway, because they said in Sacramento that they've sold all the season tickets, that the fans are lining up and they can't keep up with demand and every game is going to be sold out. We were literally 2 games into this season and the A's started offering ticket specials in Sacramento because attendance was just, not what they said it was going to be. There's no partnership. There's no stadium funding. There aren't even credible renderings of a stadium in Vegas. Those things that were done were either through Photoshop or AI equivalents that a good high school design department could have produced. There's no specificity. There's no investor that's lined up to join Fisher in this. It's the 40th largest media market. I could go on and on and on. Why Vegas? Take the A's out of the equation. Why does MLB work in Vegas? I don't know that there's an answer that says that it does. I don't know that anybody has an answer that says that it does. I think that there's a really good chance that a sale can be engineered or forced. The owners do have that authority to force a sale. It's happened before, not only in baseball, but in other sports. One phone call and this whole thing goes away, gets rectified. Vegas can muster to get an expansion team down the road. If it's proven to be a viable market, I wish them well. Nobody wants to deal with this owner. I mean, the proof is in the pudding with John Fisher. He can't get anybody lined up behind him. They've reached out. They've had some high-powered agency to try to get investors. They come up with a zero. The only thing they got recently was Aramark. In exchange for that, Aramark is going to get the contract for concessions. But Aramark just got a big black eye with their operations for how they run things at Yosemite. And there have been a lot of criticism about Aramark and how they do business. So again, he can't even get a credible partner to go in on this deal.
I'm very curious about the long-term effects that the A's moving for 3 years to Sacramento and then to Las Vegas will have on the 2 AAA markets. I looked at some numbers for the River Cats. They averaged 5,463 fans last season. This year, they're down to 4,073. I'm wondering if the A's wreck Sacramento as a AAA market when they leave too, because then fans will, want Major League Baseball and have to go back to watching the River Cats.
So, I mean, my response is I'd rather watch the River Cats in their own stadium. Like, I don't know. Yeah. I don't think the A's are ruining anything. I think they're ruining operations and like practical things. But the A's aren't stealing fans from the River Cats because the River Cats, are affiliated with the Giants. The River Cats used to be the A's AAA affiliate. So, I don't think anyone's jumping ship to be an A's fan, frankly. I mean, yeah, it's how you spend your dollars, but I don't think they're losing a material amount of attendance to the A's. That's what I would say.
The Aviators last season averaged 64,000 fans a game. They're up to 7,000 fans so far this year a game. So it seems like they might be getting excited for baseball.
This is the Vegas team?
Yeah, the Las Vegas Aviators. They have a brand new ballpark, though. It's like 5 years old.
Did they used to be called something else? I feel like I've never heard of the... Okay, I was going to say, I don't know who the hell the Aviators are.
But the Aviators are in first place. And I don't... Like Jim said, Las Vegas is the 40th largest media market. How are they going to support a AAA team and a major league team in 2 new stadiums?
I would say the probability is that they won't. There's very few occurrences where that happens. Yeah, I don't know the dynamics of ownership in Vegas, and how well the teams receive there. I've been to a game there. It's a nice stadium and it's a good experience. But Vegas is Dodger country. Let's be honest. The Los Angeles Dodgers have a stranglehold on the Vegas market.
Are they the local TV team in Vegas? Is that Dodgers territory?
They get blacked out in Vegas as well because of baseball's crazy blackout rules.
Okay.
So I think they get the Diamondbacks. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. No. Yeah, but Vegas and the Vegas area, that's Dodger territory. So any team that wants to trade and go into the 40th largest media market for a city that already has an allegiance to a really well-run and successful organization is going to be in for a rude awakening. And I'll just add one other thing that's part of this. We keep hearing the comparisons about the Raiders and football in Vegas. If you watch Raider home games in Vegas, most of the attendance is from out-of-town teams. You could see just the color scheme as you see the crowd shots. And the A's have said, and the Vegas visitors and convention authority have said, we're going to get a lot of visiting team fans. It's easy to do that in football when most of the games are on weekends. And you and your buddies could say, hey, let's fly to Vegas this weekend and see our team crush the Raiders. When you're playing Pittsburgh Pirates and Minnesota Twins and other teams on a Tuesday and Wednesday night in Las Vegas, I don't think those people are going to take time off from work to fly out and do that for baseball like they do in football. They might a little bit as a novelty initially. It's not going to be sustained like it is in football. It's easy on football. You don't have to take vacation time. You don't have to take sick time. You could fly out on Friday, come back on Sunday. For baseball, and 60% of the baseball schedule are midweek games. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
And not to mention that being in Vegas in like June through September is terrible. And, the football season's in the fall. So just inherently, it's a more desirable time to visit anyways.
Yeah. You can't imagine someone going to Tuesday night in August when it's 112.
Right.
No matter
even if they play indoors, you still have to get there.
Yeah. And just no.
Yeah, I agree. Speaking of that, I know Sacramento supposedly gets pretty hot in the summer, and I've already been hearing some complaints from the A's themselves. I don't know if that's players, front office, coaches, all of them. But it's still relatively pleasant there, and it's going to get a lot worse. So do you think that the team itself might kind of start rebelling against this whole idea of playing outdoor games in August in Sacramento?
I would say so. I lived very close to West Sacramento in Davis, California, and like 10 miles west of the ballpark. And yeah, they can get really gross really fast. And, I don't know if you guys saw, a week and a half ago or 2 weeks ago, Katse got tossed and he had to walk from home plate all the way out, all the way down the foul line to get out because the clubhouse was like behind the stadium and the press room is like a shed from Home Depot. Like they just don't take care of people. Like you can build a ballpark there and it can be fine, but you can't have 2 teams there playing, 160 games in 180 days and expect everyone to be happy. And it's going to be hot as crap shortly.
Right. It's like at one point does the MLBPA be like, hold on, this isn't what we're signing up for.
Yeah, it's like your relatives overstaying their welcome.
Yeah, and wasn't Carlos Correa recently with the Twins? He said, it's like, I don't care about him much, but he's like, I'm not going to spend 2 months on the IL because I went to this park and played for 2 hours and I biffed it, or I blew out my knee because they don't know what to do. And you have 2 teams in minor league parks, and they should be upset about this, and they should. It's fun. It's fine to say, okay, this is the hand we're dealt, and we're gonna play for the fans, and we're gonna play because it's what we love. But there is also you can't make us do this. So I'd be interested to see how they do that after a year of actually being in there and seeing what happens.
Right. And you have to think too that, let's assume the A's were a team that would spend a little bit. Who's going to go there voluntarily when you don't know where they're going to be in 3 years? They're currently in a place you don't want to actually be. Like, that's got to only be detrimental to acquiring anybody unless it's through a trade and they don't have a choice.
Yeah, there's no reason for anyone to sign right now unless they overpay for guys like Severino, and because they had to hit that 100 million revenue sharing threshold or whatever, or to squash the grievance. But yeah, there's no reason for anyone to come out here.
So speaking of Sacramento, I have some kind of I don't know if you'd call them ethical questions as A's fans, but my first one is, do you have any plans to go to games in Sacramento, or have you been to one? An A's game, that is.
I have not been to one. And I don't know that I'm going to go to one. If I do go, I suspect the one I might go to is when they induct the Hall of Fame class that they've announced this year, which is the big 3, Hudson, Mulder, and Zito, and A's broadcaster, Monty Moore, who came with the team from Kansas City and was at Oakland for many years. And I had Monty's one of the people I got to interview when I worked for the A's, and he's a wonderfully nice man. He's in his 90s now. And I remember my interview with him very vividly because I was admiring one of his World Series rings that he was wearing, and he saw me eyeing it and asked me if I'd like to try it on, and I said yes, and he let me do that, and it was quite a thrill. So that might be the one game I might go to, but just really to honor Hudson, Mulder, Zito, and Monty Moore. We have the games on sometimes as background, but I don't go out of my way to follow the news about the team or really about MLB. I'm really mad at the owners for enabling this and setting this example for other owners to emulate through what I call the Fisher playbook.
Right. Chris, what about you? Do you plan to go to any?
So I did go to one.
Okay.
On my way up the mountain. And I only went because I wanted to be able to have street cred when I talk crap about it. So it was fine. If I wasn't so pissed off about how we got there, I'd be like, all right, I'd do this again. But you are close, and I went to a day game, and I'm sitting in the sun, hanging out, having a water and a hot dog, and living the dream. It's fine. It's still expensive. It's not any cheaper because it's a minor league park. But I got my ticket off of a resale site, and the fees were more than the ticket, but the ticket was $30 all in. I won't do it again, but I'd go again if they're going to honor the big 3. I would go do that, and it's more important to. Those guys gave us so many memories. It'd be fun to go do that, but yeah. it doesn't add to they're the experience there isn't any better than it is in Oakland, or it was in Oakland. And
Right.
I would, even though again Oakland's a pit, or the Coliseum is literally a pit, but there's no reason for it to be somewhere else.
I have a question about the Oakland market. For any listeners who are unaware, there's a new team there that play in the Pioneer League, the Oakland Ballers, or better name, the Oakland Bees. Have you guys wanted to support them at all or buy any merch?
Yes, and yes, we went to a couple of games last year. I'm a distant cousin to Ramondi. That is Ramondi Park is named after, who played in the Pacific Coast League. And so so we went there, and it's very intimate. You're very close to the action, and support that team and follow their news. And it's carrying on the great tradition that Oakland has in baseball that even predates the A's. Back, the Oakland Oaks were a fantastic team in the Pacific Coast League. So there's a long history of baseball in Oakland. So and I've already been looking at the schedule to go out this year and see the Ballers play.
Yeah, it looked like they did pretty well last year. They went 58-34.
Yeah, they made the playoffs.
So they could probably beat the A's.
That means they could beat the Orioles too. Another question. Will you go support the A's in another park in their current iteration? Like, have you thought about going to see them in San Francisco or anywhere else? Or is it like, I don't want to be associated with them right now?
So I went, they played in San Francisco a couple weeks ago, and Eric from Syracuse, his boys are in Little League, and they had their Little League day there. And so I went with him and them, and we all wore A's gear. And I just kind of sat there. Like I'll never support the Giants, but it's tough because you want to root for the guys because it's not the guys' fault.
Mm-hmm.
And the players, we have some good young players, but it is hard to I'm not going to go to Detroit to watch the A's or go do something silly like that. And the whole relationship with baseball thing is hard right now because of this. I still listen and watch to most A's games, even though I really wanted to say I wouldn't. And I did say I wouldn't, but I definitely do.
Can't help yourself.
Yeah. So someone saved me from myself. So and it was fun, you sit at the ballpark and you watch, and they were up in the 8th and then they lost. And it's well, this is classic. I'm used to this. So, but yeah, I won't go travel to see them, or go out of my way to support them. But yeah, it's hard to kind of let it go. That's a different question, or a different answer to a different question. But, I've seen them elsewhere, and yeah, it's hard to not give them the love.
That's fair. Now, hypothetically, if the A's were to return to Oakland under current ownership, would you support them? And would you be more likely to support them if it was a new ownership group in that case?
Well, definitely. I don't see them coming back to Oakland under the current ownership. I think Fisher knows that it's beyond repair in Oakland, and there's no way he could be successful with the team. The team could be successful with the right owner. I mentioned Joe Lacob earlier. There are other ownership groups that I'm sure could do well with the team. So yeah, if they came back to Oakland with new ownership, I would certainly support them. And there's a history of success. Let's not lose sight of the fact that when the Haas family owned the A's, the A's would routinely draw more than $2 million a year. So this notion that it's the fans in Oakland that aren't supporting the team is wholly false. The fans will support good ownership. The fans, just I think like any fans, want to be respected, want to be embraced, want to be treated well by investment in the team by the ownership. So if the team came back with new owners in Oakland, even on a transitional basis, like this arrangement that was just announced last week with the White Sox, with Jerry Reinsdorf ceding control over a period of years to a new owner, something like that could easily work in Oakland. I don't know why that is not engineered by the owners, other than they're trying to make an example of this franchise to give other owners with other franchises. And I think Chris wants to talk more about this particular aspect. I think they're trying to make an example of Oakland for ulterior motives.
Chris, do you want to get into that a little bit?
Yeah. So to your original question, yeah, I hope they come back. I do think they will end up coming back, and I don't think anyone would shun them for having left, because this wasn't their doing. Again, it's about the team, it's about the people, it's not about the owner. And what this has caused, you look at how Manfred took a plane trip to Milwaukee and said, oh, you need $448 million or whatever it was a few years ago. Said you have to go put these investments in, or else maybe we'll move. Because look at what happened in Oakland. And again, there's culpability everywhere in Oakland. But being able to wield that as a stick instead of a carrot, you're really going to give up the White Sox? You're really going to give up the Brewers? You're going to give up other teams? Kansas City allegedly just bought a parcel in Kansas instead of Missouri. I don't know what town or whatever, but they're all just threatening each other with these hundreds of millions of dollars in taxpayer money. And no, you're a billionaire. You can handle it. And if you want to own this team, and if you can't handle it, then you sell it. That's kind of it. I think that's where a lot of that's a big part of where at least my disdain comes to this. It's, we seem to be the first for just grossly mismanaging a franchise, and we're all going to let it happen, and we're going to name Fisher to the executive committee of the ownership group, or whatever it was. I don't remember what exactly it was, but they named him to the executive committee at the ownership level. And why are we letting this happen?
You'd have to think that at some point they'd reach almost a saturation point of cities or counties that are willing to just give billionaires hundreds of millions of dollars. And at some point the musical chairs have to stop, you would think. But it looks like right now, as an A's fan, it's tough, because there are those cities that seem to be willing to do that.
Yeah, but you look at Nashville and Vegas. Vegas, I don't think Vegas wants the A's. I think MLB wants Vegas. And so Vegas wants their own team, because they've shown that with the Knights. I don't think if the Blues, decided their lease wasn't worth it in St. Louis, and Vegas wanted a hockey team. No, they want their own thing. So why are we forcing this to a place where they don't want us to go? It's odd. All of it's odd and gross.
Yeah, it's getting off on the wrong foot, so to speak. You're not going to really take all the A's fans with you. The Las Vegas community isn't going to jump into something that isn't theirs. It's just
they couldn't take A's fans 60 miles east to Sacramento. You're
the
gonna
same market.
You want us to go 400 miles south? Like, no, like that's not happening.
Right.
I came away impressed with the A's this weekend too. You mentioned Kotze earlier. I wouldn't mind seeing him managing Baltimore next season if now that they have
No,
an opening.
he's ours. We just signed him to extension. You can't have him.
And then Lawrence Butler was awesome to watch this weekend. He's extended. Jacob Wilson, don't tell anybody. I think he might be better than Gunnar Henderson.
He's rookie of the year easily.
Runner up. Suganu's got rookie of the year locked up.
Oh yeah.
Not after today. My lord.
I actually watched Jacob Wilson's dad play for the Altoona Curve for his first couple years in AA. So it's kind of cool seeing his son as a superstar already. And then Tyler Soderstrom was drafted 26 overall in 2020. That is 24 spots after Heston Kjerstad was drafted. I would.
You want to make
Screwed up there.
And then Mason Miller, like, oh my God, that's gonna be fun until his arm blows out.
Yeah, he hasn't. He had a five pitch ninth inning today. I don't know if you saw that before we hopped on, but yeah, he's had a little. Well, I mean, every A's pitcher has had a little rough stuff this year. So,
right. Anything we haven't covered that you want to make sure you have your voice heard by the millions of Orioles fans that listen to this?
Yeah, I'd like to talk a little bit about the role of the commissioner in this. So a lot of times, Manfred, he's speaking on behalf of the owners. People have to remember he is the owner's agent. The owners hired him. The owners have the authority to fire him. He does their bidding. So when he gets up to say things, he's really speaking for the owners. And again, the owners have unanimously endorsed and approved this relocation. And I still don't know by what credible measure they think Vegas is good for baseball, regardless of whether it's relocation or expansion. There have been no empirical studies. So there is an ulterior motive here, and I want to chide the national media for their avoidance of this topic, of delving into it. I want to see somebody put the owners on the hot seat. And yeah, the owners might just decline any interview, but then the media can say, well, we reached out to 20 different owners and they all declined our interview on this topic. I think the media has been sorely remiss in really not digging deep into this. I also think that previous commissioners, Bowie Kuhn, Peter Uberoth, Bart Giamatti, and Fay Vincent, would never have let this get to this point. They acted in the best interest of baseball. Bowie Kuhn voided deals that Finley made to sell Joe Rudy and Raleigh Fingers to the Boston Red Sox in the middle of the season. He voided those transactions in the best interest of baseball. It seems that the best interest of baseball might be a subjective term, and I'm assuming that Rob Manfred's interpretation is what's in the best interest of the owners' wallets. And I don't think that's right. I think, yeah, it's a business and they're in it to make money, and every business owner is. I think there's something different about owning a baseball team. There's something intrinsic about it. There's a responsibility to be faithful to your community. And I don't think that's happening here. And I think a good commissioner, a real commissioner, would never let it get to this point. So I think some heat should be directed in their direction, the owners and Rob Manfred.
Yeah, I think you make a good point there. I remember last year when they had kind of finalized the fact that they were moving to Sacramento, I looked it up, and I think since the A's had moved to Oakland, correct me if I'm wrong, you might know better than me, but I think it said that they had the third most wins behind the Yankees and Red Sox since they moved to Oakland. Like, this isn't just some random outpost. Like, this is a historical baseball town with a historic team that you're just completely screwing over at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the founding members of the American League. It's a storied franchise from the days in Philadelphia. And none of that tradition seems to carry weight with the owners or Manfred. He referred to the baseball, the World Series trophy as a hunk of metal when the Astros, because of their cheating scandal, when that was happening. And instead of vacating that championship as he should have done He said, well, it's just a hunk of metal, so we're not really going to be too worried about it. They did get to the truth about the cheating, but there should have been some measures taken beyond what was done, which was basically nothing. So his sense of the importance of baseball, again, beyond the play on the field, I think is really absent. He's the owner's agent. He's working hard for them. He's going to work for a salary cap in the next CBA. That's why they've retained him. They gave him the extension. And probably a salary cap is a good idea for baseball, but that's a separate conversation.
Right. Billy, you got any others?
If you could bring one player from history with you to start with in Las Vegas, who is it, and why is it Ricky Henderson? How did we go this long without talking about Ricky Henderson?
Yeah, I don't know. Ricky's certainly a favorite. Ricky, he was born in Chicago but raised in Oakland. He went to Oakland Tech. At the time I was in high school, we're basically the same age. His birthday's December 25th. Mine's December 26th. Ricky's a character. He's a beloved figure. We were so sorry about his passing late last year. We went to the memorial service that they had at the Coliseum Arena earlier this year. Ricky was the greatest leadoff man ever, and I think that ever will be. And he had all the brash and panache, and people had, misinterpret Ricky. But if you were, you saw him or you heard him on a daily basis, you realize that's just Ricky being Ricky. He wasn't bragging. He was just, kind of telling it like it is. But I couldn't think of a better player to have on my team in terms of a position player. And of course, if it's a pitcher, I'm going to take Catfish Hunter as my guy.
Chris, how about you? Let's not say Vegas. Let's say a place you want them to be. If there's a new Oakland team,
say, Vegas, I say nobody.
Give them the shittiest one you can think
of. I loved watching Barry Zito pitch. As a kid, he was pitching in the early 2000s when I still was playing baseball. And pitching at the time, and I could never throw I've never thrown a curveball. I just kind of aimed it and threw it, and we named our cat Zito after him. And that whole era, that big three, and Tejada and Chavez and Giambi, and Ramon Hernandez, at all those guys, I think Barry Zito today would be exactly what you want him to be on the mound. If you had to trust a guy with a start, I still remember him doing some crazy stuff with his curveball, and I think he'd be the guy.
Right.
Yeah, I wish the Orioles had somebody like
I was
Barry
just going to say the O's could use him too.
Current age, even.
Yeah, right. What's it got to be, like 50?
He's probably Morton's age.
I would take him.
You would tell him to put his guitar down and get down to the park.
Right. Everyone has their price.
Yeah.
Well, I think that is a good closing point. I want to thank you guys.
Wait, I got one more question.
Oh, sorry.
We have to ask. We ask all our guests this.
Oh, yes. I forgot about the question.
From 2007 until 2013, there was a TV show that aired on the USA Network by the name of Burn Notice, and I'm wondering if you guys have ever watched an episode.
I did not.
I think I watched one on Netflix or something once. Is it? That's not Walton Goggins, is it? Like a young Walton Goggins?
No, I don't know who's in it. As far as I know, there's nobody like a household name in there. Let me
okay.
Definitely no one.
So no, I think once, but no, I'm still waiting for the Dong Notice T-shirts that I was promised.
I don't think it was promised. I might have told you it was a good idea because it is. But... Well, if you've watched one episode of that, you've watched more than Billy or I have. So Yeah, so thank you guys both. We really appreciate it. Chris, a former roommate of mine, and his dad, Jim. It's great to meet you, Jim. I appreciate all that you've brought to our podcast as far as knowledge of the A's. And I think Billy and I both agree that, the situation just sucks for A's fans. And we're sorry that's happening because for all we know, it could be the Orioles next, but let's hope not.
Yeah, thanks for shedding some light on it.
Yeah, well, thank you guys.
And now we get to talk about how the A's took 2 of 3 from the O's this weekend.
Sure.
So this brought us to Friday, June 6th, game 62, O's at A's. We got some bad news about Ryan Mountcastle before this game. His hamstring is bad enough to sideline him for 8 to 12 weeks. If he's out the full 12 weeks, that's mid-September. At this point, the Orioles might be 30 games under 500 by then. So we might have seen the last of Ryan Mountcastle this season.
Yeah, I don't wish injuries on a guy, and it is just his hamstring, so I don't really feel bad saying I'm kind of happy that happened because I'm just sick of him.
Yeah, you won't miss his play on the field. You just wish it was under different circumstances.
Right. Or just, yeah, like I said, it's just a hamstring. He didn't tear his ACL. He didn't get a concussion. He'll heal. And yeah, I don't need to see him anymore.
Do you think it's torn off the bone, though, for it to be that severe? 8 to 12 week
injury? They said grade 2. That doesn't sound like a torn off the bone, but I'm not a trainer or something, so I don't know.
I would expect to see him land on the 60-day IL at some point when they need a 40-man spot. It seems like an easy move. Even at 8 weeks, that's, 2 months, 30 days in a month, 60 days.
Right.
But even bigger than the Mountcastle news before this game, my boy Scott Blewett is back.
You know what? I was listening to the radio for today's Sunday's game, and they were calling him Bluette. And I looked it on Baseball Reference, and it says Blewett. So I don't know what they were doing there.
I was also listening to the radio broadcast today and heard Melanie calling him Bluette multiple times.
Both were. She and Jeff Arnold. We're both saying that. And I was just like, that's not how we say this.
I think Jeff Arnold was afraid to correct her. Have you seen season 2 of The Rehearsal?
No, I've never watched that show.
It's incredible. I was going to say this for Media Corner. But basically, Nathan Fielder has a theory that the majority of airline crashes are because the pilots aren't communicating properly because they're afraid to...
Oh yeah, I think that can be like a cultural or like an old school thing too, where like you can't tell the first pilot or whatever they call him what to do, right?
Yeah, I think that's what happened here. Jeff didn't want to embarrass Melanie and be like, "Hey, it's Blewett. We all know this.
Right?
What are you doing?"
Okay, that's fair.
But yeah, Atlanta had decided they'd seen enough after they watched him play a huge role in a game that they lost when they were leading by 7 in the 9th. But all in all, he appeared in 11 games with the Braves, a 5.51 ERA, 13 strikeouts, and 16 and a third. I imagine they're going to try and sneak him through waivers again soon. The Orioles will.
The 5.51 ERA will fit well with the O's. We know that much.
Yeah, his ERA got blown up in this 7-run disaster. But do you know who replaced him on the Braves roster?
Yes, I do. Craig Kimbrell.
And his stuff was still in the low 90s. He gave up a leadoff single and a walk to the first 2 batters, so the Braves had decided they'd seen enough of him. They DFA'd him after 1 day.
I saw that. I mean, DFAing Kimbrell now is just sending him down. Nobody's going to claim him, so.
Yeah, nobody's going to claim him. I wonder if he just takes that and runs with it. Like, hey, I got into a major league game. I pitched for the team I'm most associated with.
Right. Came full circle with the Braves.
I was curious to how Braves fans were reacting to this Kimbrell DFA, so I lurked on the Braves subreddit, and they are pissed off at how a franchise legend had been treated this week.
Oh, Lord. I mean, what are you going to do? You call him up once, you keep him on the roster all year? Like, how else do you get rid of him unless he retires or you like trade him?
Yeah, they obviously didn't watch him in the second half of the Orioles last year because that's his MO. First guy gets on,
Collapse.
maybe the second guy gets on, and
Yeah.
it's over. Even Snicker said he kind of got lucky that he was able to pitch a scoreless inning here, but
Right. That reminded me, while you were talking about the bullpen, to look up how Perez is doing in AAA. And Baseball Reference only has him down for 1 inning with 1 walk, no strikeouts, no runs. But he's barely pitching, it seems like.
I also looked at this. He pitched today, and it did not go well.
Oh, shit. Really?
Yeah, he gave up at least 1 run, maybe 2.
Oh, God. That dude is cooked. He and Kimbrel should go hang out.
Laureano was also activated before this game, so pour one out for Jordan Adams. We're still waiting to hear if he clears. He had an option, but someone needed to be removed from the 40-man to make room for Bluette.
Bluette.
Laureano played in 2 rehab games with the Tides, going 3 for 8 with a home run while scoring 3 runs.
It's good to see him back because he is unexpectedly one of their better players this season.
Do you think they rushed the Laureano comeback because he wanted to play against his former team, the A's? Because he left the rehab game he was playing in early.
I don't know.
As planned.
I mean, the whole Sacramento thing, I don't know how much he cares about playing against that iteration. Could be. Could be wrong. They still have the same personnel.
Yeah, they didn't rush Westberg back. That's why I was wondering. Maybe
they don't care as much if Laureano hurts himself again. So they're like, Westberg, you need to take your time. Make sure you're all right.
Yeah. I bet there's something to that. But this game, we got Dean Kramer versus J.P. Sears. Urias led off the second with a single, setting up Dylan Carlson to send the 30th pitch from Sears, 96 miles per hour off the bat and over the wall. His 3rd home run of the year. That's 1 more than Ryan Mountcastle.
Speaking of Laureano, in the top of the 3rd, after Jackson Holliday doubled, Laureano hit a sac fly to score him, and it was 3-0 Orioles.
Dean walked Ramon's brother, and things fell apart here for Kramer. He goes pop out, single, double, RBI ground out. Kramer is roughed up, 4 runs on 4 hits. All of a sudden, the A's were up 4-3. Mayo did a nice job at first to keep a ground out in the infield, and they barely got Soderstrom at first base in the inning, or this thing might still be going.
Speaking of Mountcastle, they were saying on the radio broadcast today that Mayo is feeling a lot more comfortable at first base than he does at third. So I think there's certainly something to be said for that. And speaking of defense, in the top of the 4th, Jorge Mateo with 2 outs hit a long fly ball to left center, and Denzel Clark made just a ridiculous play on it. Like full speed into the wall. I do not know how he held onto the ball. That was one of the better balls out catches you're going to see.
Yeah, I was going to write this up as a missed opportunity, but I saved it. This single play got Denzel Clark my 3rd star. There were 2 on, 2 out. This catch literally cost the Orioles a victory here. Clark was removed from the game. Incredible catch. The wall, I noticed Kaiser made a catch jumping into the wall earlier, or maybe he didn't catch the ball, but he jumped into the wall. You could see the wall shift, and then Clark ran into that same section of the wall. He's lucky he didn't go through it. He hit it so hard.
Right. Yeah, I had never heard of that guy, but I think I'll remember his name for a while now.
Yeah, he's one of my new favorite players. That was the best catch I've ever seen, I think. Before I had that Gary Matthews Jr. catch up there, that was nothing.
Oh, the backwards climbing up the wall thing?
Yeah.
That was pretty sick. But if you're willingly hurt, and you know what, right? Remember Aaron Rowand on the Phillies? It seems like all I remember him doing was running face first into the wall in center field. That's what that reminded me of. Just no regard for your own body.
I saw his name somewhere.
Really?
Today. Maybe I was reading a Phillies article or something.
Huh.
Yeah, don't tell Brandon Hyde, but Jackson Holliday led off the 5th with a home run off of a left-hander.
Oh, no. Is that possible?
Yeah. And then I had said last episode that Holliday could challenge Ricky Henderson for the all-time leadoff home run total. Leading off an inning should count for these, I think, not just leading off the game.
I mean, that's not how they do it, though.
They should, though, is what I'm saying.
Why?
Why not?
Because it's different.
I wonder what Ricky's total is leading off innings and games.
Probably 15 to 20 more.
I wonder if there's a way to look that up.
I have no idea.
But this tied the game up at 4.
However, as Dean Kramer loves to do, he gave the lead right back in the bottom of the 5th. With 1 out, Lawrence Butler and Jacob Wilson singled. Brent Rooker followed with his own to score Butler, and that put the A's up 5-4.
Yeah, and they'd go on to win by that score because the Orioles might be playing better, but they still lack any kind of late inning fight as they once again go a measly 1 for 9 with runners in scoring position. Rooker is now 16 for 38 with 5 doubles, a homer, and 11 RBI in his last 10 games. Both teams stranded the bases loaded late in the game. Kjerstad had a particularly bad pinch hitting appearance. It was comically bad. 3 straight swings and misses on inside low breaking balls. It was uncomfortable. And
It's like secondhand embarrassment.
He was making pained faces after every swing, like, got me again.
Oh, Lord.
Holiday, he's 5 for 9 in his career with the bases loaded. He had a crack at Mason Miller, but he was just overpowered. 103 mile per hour fastball, swing and miss. Miller got a 5-out save in this one.
Speaking of Rooker, I was just thinking about how he seems to own the Orioles, and Baseball Reference isn't updated for today's game, but before today's game, career against the O's, 14 games, he has 5 homers, 19 RBIs, batting .396 with a 1197 OPS. So he does just light them up.
And he has an extension.
Yeah, there you go.
Something no Orioles have received still.
Right.
In the year of our Lord 2025.
Right.
So this brought us to Saturday. Game 63. Charlie Morton versus Luis Severino.
Yeah, and this was a good start for the O's. We'll talk about that first because they got on the board, 2 leadoff walks, a single by Gunnar, loads the bases. O'Hearn hits a sac fly to score Holiday. Unfortunately, Laureano grounded into a double play to end the inning, but the O's did get 1 run out of the top of the first.
Yeah, the good news in the bottom of the first is Charlie Morton struck out the side, but the bad news is in between those 3 strikeouts, Lawrence Butler led off with a double, Jacob Wilson would single him in, Brent Rooker would single, Tyler Soderstrom would walk, there's another RBI single, then Charlie Morton walked in a run, there was a bases loaded RBI infield single, which is something you don't see every day. This took Charlie Morton 41 pitches to get out of the first inning.
Yeah, I couldn't decide if this was the old new Morton, like the new Morton's the Orioles version, and he went back to the old version from the beginning of the season, or if this is like the new old new Morton.
Yeah, watching this was like, oh, this was my fault for believing that this was going to be something he moved on from and was able to be an effective pitcher going forward. Like another start like this, you might have to cut him.
Yeah, and it's especially after things were looking okay. Like, yeah, I don't expect him to have a quality start every time, but he just looked like he did in the beginning of the year. It's like the last few weeks were just erased, you know?
Yeah.
I think we'll learn a lot from the next start. I don't know when or who it'll be, but if he sucks again, then yeah, I think you could argue that he should just be blasted into the sun like Mount Castle.
Then Laureano would homer in the 4th after an O'Hearn signal. The O's are back in this. It's 4-3, Oakland or Sacramento.
Yeah. Top of the 5th, the O's would get another one. With 2 outs, Agley doubled, and then Gunnar followed with a sharp single to left center, and that tied the game. So, again, Agley and Gunnar working in unison, and things are going well on that front, maybe?
Yeah, they're the engine behind the team. Cowser, first pitch swinging in the sixth. He sent this into the Sacramento night, 455 feet. The Orioles retake the lead for the first time since the first inning. Severino walks Ramon Urias and Dylan Carlson back to back. Hanley would move them over on a ground out. Urias would score on a throwing error from third baseman Logan Davidson that would pull Soderstrom off the bag. O's up 6-4. This was the longest home run since Ryan Mountcastle went 472 feet against the Astros on August 8th, 2023.
That was a monster homer. I really didn't know Cowser was capable of that. Like, of course he has power. I think he hit 17 homers last year or something, but he crushed that.
I think he hit 24 homers, right?
Oh, I don't know.
I think he had 17 at the end of April.
You're probably right. 17 at the end of April. He did have 24. You were right. I don't know where I came up with 17.
Yeah, he was badass in April last year. Yeah, he can really do it all. The sky's the limit for him.
He just needs to work on his brain. He just seems kind of dumb, but he's really good.
Yeah, even in his rehab game I went to last week, he overthrew a ball to home plate from center field. And I was like, well, I don't think that part of his game is ever
Well, in this game, was it this game or one of the games this weekend? I think it was earlier. He got picked off first.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, it was in the fourth inning of this game. Right after the Laureano home run, he hit a single and then promptly got picked off. It's like, what are you doing? I don't know. That's Cowser.
Yeah, it just comes with his game, I guess. On that pickoff attempt, I was watching his hands, and I was like, "Don't break your hand! Don't break your hand!"
Yeah, right.
Sliding back into first.
Right.
The Orioles would score for the third consecutive inning in the seventh when Gunnar would barely score on a Laureano RBI single. This was a good send by Buck Britton. Gunnar had reached on a hit by pitch, and this was 7-4 Orioles.
Oh, so I don't know if we've talked about this, but this just reminded me that former Orioles bench coach Freddie Gonzalez was recently rehired by Atlanta, where he's managed before, to be the third base coach because of some bad sends, they said, by Matt Tuiasosopo, who I had no idea was the third base coach of the Braves, but I remember that guy. Yeah, and I guess he was so bad at sending guys at third that they just got rid of him and brought back Gonzalez.
As opposed to the Orioles, who Catholic Church, Tony Monzolino, he got a promotion for being bad at his job.
Right.
Yeah, Matt Tuiasosopo is Marcus's brother, former Oakland Raiders quarterback.
Yeah, I remember that.
Felix would walk the leadoff man in the ninth. Then he got 3 straight swinging strikeouts for his 60th career save. That would move him into a 10th place tie for the most in franchise history. Do you know who with?
Oh, Lord. 10th place, 60 saves. Chris Ray.
No, that's a good guess. Don't think I've ever heard of this guy before. Tim Stoddard? Is he from the 80s?
I don't think I know him either.
I think he's from the 80s.
Yeah, 75 to 89.
Yeah, after I said his name, I saw like a baseball card image flash in my brain.
His picture looks like, the classic photos they show nowadays of like, this guy was 30 years old. Can you believe it? Like, he looks like an old man, but I'm sure he was actually young.
Are you seeing the picture of him with the Padres for his Wikipedia page?
No, I'm on his baseball reference, just looking at the 2 photos they have of him. He just looks like an old math teacher from like 1975. That's how I would describe him.
Something weird happened to him. So he debuted in 1975 with the White Sox and then didn't reemerge until 3 years later with the Orioles. And then he pitched for them from 78 to 83. So he was on that World Series team.
Yeah, got a ring, huh? Let's see. Was he in that postseason? Nope. He didn't pitch at all in the 83 playoffs. That's weird. Wonder if he got hurt.
See, that's no way to treat the 10th all-time franchise save leader. Who are they, the Braves?
He was bad in 83, 6.09 ERA, and then didn't pitch in the playoffs. Maybe they were like, hey, we don't want you in important games.
Ooh, he was traded to the A's for Wayne Gross.
I don't know
Then he
him.
was dealt again before the season started to the Cubs for Stan Kiles.
Fun. Tim
That's
Stoddard.
Tim Stoddard corner. 3 stars. Number 3, Charlie Morton for pitching in his 35th Major League ballpark. This ties Jose Quintana among active leaders.
Yeah, just don't look at the numbers.
The number 2 star, 3 through 6 hitters, 8 for 18, 2 home runs, 4 runs scored, 6 RBI. And the number 1 star here, this is a no-doubter in my mind. This is the bullpen. 6 relievers combined to go for 3 holds, a win, and a save, 6 1/3, 2 hits, 9 strikeouts, 4 walks. 2 of those walks were from Bowman, who only threw 1 of 9 first pitch strikes. And then I saw Gregory Soto's 14 holds on the season. That leads the team by 4. I wouldn't have guessed that.
I mean, it's hard to guess which reliever is doing well for the Orioles this year because not many are. Kittredge, in a small sample size, has his ERA down to 1.35 at this point after this game. And Aiken creeped under 3 here in this game, 2.93. So other than that, I don't think anybody else has been spectacular.
Yeah. Orioles pitchers struck out 14 combined. That extends a record of at least 8 strikeouts in 12 games, which is the longest active streak in the majors. And then Carlson threw out a runner with a gunner cutoff throw at home plate. This single play by Carlson is why he should be on the roster over Kerstad.
Yeah, that play was weird to me. Do you think the runner on second held because they thought Carlson might catch it? Like, I was surprised the guy was even close to being out at home.
One thing they said on the broadcast today is that the Sacramento warning track is like way bigger than the standard Major League Baseball warning track.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so Carlson was on the track and was reaching for the wall, and there was nothing behind him there, and that caused him to misplay that ball. And then he just picked it up and fired a strike to Gunner, who fired a strike to, I don't know, probably Abley.
Handley, I think it was.
Okay.
Yeah, so Chris mentioned Correa complaining about getting hurt there, but it sounds like maybe the outfielders have more to worry about. Like, imagine if you think the wall's there and it's not, and you take a tumble and, I don't know, smash your shoulder against it or something.
So this brought us to Sunday. Sugano versus Jacob Lopez. This is going to be fairly quick. Lawrence Butler led off with a single. He'd come around to score when Soderstrom hit a 2-out RBI single on the 4th curveball he saw in 5 pitches from Sugano. A's take an early 1-0 lead.
Top of the second, though, Arias led off with a double. Cowser struck out, Mayo grounded out, but Arias was now on third. After an Emmanuel Rivera walk, Arias was able to score on a pickoff attempt that ended up in the outfield, and that tied the game at 1.
Yeah, this was embarrassing base running from Emmanuel Rivera. He almost cost them a run. Urias was able to slide into home plate a split second before Rivera just aimlessly wandered into the, I don't know if it was the shortstop, but the ball. Buck Britton had his arms up, telling him to stop at second base. There was no reason for Rivera to try and advance to third base. The ball never left the vicinity of the third base.
Yeah, it's kind of like what I was saying about Mayo the other day in that silly play where he like ran into the fielder and I think it was the White Sox. Like, he didn't just give himself up. He at least did something. And Rivera was just like wandering around. He has not looked. I think we acknowledged a million times. Like, disclaimer, small sample size last year when he was good. He has not been that guy this year.
No, he blew his case to stick around when these injured guys came back. And I mean, the Orioles is a tough roster to make when everybody's healthy, and you can't go 0 for 2 weeks when you get an opportunity.
Right. His average after today is down to 232 with a 578 OPS. So that's more like the Rivera we would have expected, let's be honest. But he did tease us a bit last year.
Yeah, I hope he clears and sticks in the organization. He's a trusted hand and probably a great AAA player. So,
yeah, he sounds like he could be a Tides legend. I mean, he's old enough now. He probably won't be there long enough, but that's probably what he's best suited for at this point.
Then the A's would land a bunch of body blows on Sugano in the second inning. With one out, they go single, double, run scored. Butler's back up again in the second inning already. Remember, he's a leadoff hitter. He hit a ball to Gunnar at shortstop. He made the first of 2 errors today, allowing a run to score. And Jacob Wilson drove in a run. He's basically Wade Boggs at this point. That was pretty much it.
Yeah, the O's would not score again. The A's added another one in the 8th, and this was a pretty easy victory for the A's, and pretty surprising to me, actually, that Sugano looked as bad as he did after doing so well in Seattle.
Yeah, the A's win their first series since the end of April against White Sox, and yeah, this series was a hard reality check if you wanted to start getting your hopes up. They
right. Wasn't Oakland like 2-21 before this series? They had lost 1 billion games and like finally beat the Twins, I think, right before this series.
Yeah, this was bad. They can't hide Charlie Morton. They can't hide D. Kramer. They can't hit with runners in scoring position. They can't not make fielding errors or mental mistakes like the base running ones we just talked about. You don't end up 12 games under 500 by accident with a negative 88 run differential. Like, this is still a bad team that just had a nice winning streak.
Right. Oh, one thing I want to add, I think my favorite part of this game was that right before the top of the 9th, they displayed a graphic on the screen saying that the bullpen had gone, it was either 20 1/3 or 20 2/3 innings on this road trip without giving up a single run. And then Baker allowed a home run to left field as soon as that graphic went off the screen. It was like, reminder, the O's are not actually good.
They are not good. Any left-hander with a pulse can make them look like they've never picked up a bat before. Jacob Lopez had an ERA of 7.20 coming into the start. He allowed no earned runs despite throwing over 90 pitches in only 4 innings.
I mean, it's not that surprising to me because none of their good hitters are right-handed. Like, at best, you can say Agley, but he's a switch hitter. I mean, Laureano, Arias, like, they're not that great. Anybody on their team that's not, well, Westberg is hurt, but anybody who's proven and like actually decent at hitting is not a righty.
Yeah, this is where Elias was pretty much perfect from, so we thought, coming out of the rebuild, getting them up and running in 2022. 2023 was picture perfect. The first half of last year, good to go. And then some cracks started forming in last year's second half. And then this year is just total sewage. And this year you can see the mistakes that weren't seen before. Way too heavy left-handed lineup. Not drafting any pitchers for 4 years before the 5th round. Holding on to prospects too long. Not making a trade for a legitimate starting pitcher. I didn't get mad about this at the time, but now we have the benefit of hindsight. There was no reason not to trade for Garrett Crochet. That was just a total drop of the ball.
Yeah. I mean, what good are prospects when your window is so small and now's the time to be using them? I don't know.
Yeah, it's just not hard to see where he went wrong in this roster construction. And then the next thing I think is going to rear its ugly head in is after this trade deadline, when they have to trade half the roster because they're on expiring contracts. It's driving me nuts hearing people say like, oh, this is just a 1-year thing and they'll reset for next year. It doesn't work like that. This stuff carries over. You're going to start behind next season trying to get up and running up, by the time summer rolls around. You can't have another bad start next season.
Yeah, and they also have like a million decisions to make as far as the roster. I mean, right now they basically only have the guys who have to be here.
Yeah.
Nobody else, nobody who's able to leave is committed for next season or beyond.
There's no fucking pitching on the horizon. And the people I see getting excited about some of the pitching, I guess, is in the lower levels of the minors from like the last two drafts, like the 23 and 24 draft. They're not going to be ready at all in like the next 5 years. Pitching takes forever to develop. Braxton Bragg, who is the new darling of the farm system, he just left his last start with an elbow injury.
Oh,
Chase
sweet.
McDermott sucked again today. There is no pitching coming. Trevor Rogers is the best pitching prospect the Orioles have in the top half of the minor leagues.
Right. Oh, Lord. Yeah, I mean, that means they're going to have to do something. They're going to have to spend, whether it's player capital or actual dollars, to do something about their rotation next year, unless they're banking on Grayson and Bradish and Wells, which they probably will, because that means they won't have to actually do anything.
Yep, absolutely. And it's, I would overpay. I would make stupid offers to Sagano and Eflin right now. I'd overpay him by like $10 million. And if it doesn't work, fine. But you have to do something. Grayson might be a lost cause at this point. I was thinking today, there's a chance Grayson doesn't pitch this season, goes into next season, develops elbow problem, and misses all of next season as well. That elbow is a ticking time bomb.
Could be. I don't know. Should they give him pre-Tommy John while he's out with some other injury? It's like, here, let us go replace your UCL because you're already hurt.
It's like you give pitchers pre-Tommy John in the way you would like spay and neuter your pets.
Right.
To wrap up this A's series, Lawrence Butler is batting .393 in June, 11-game hitting streak, hits in 20 of his last 21. Jacob Wilson, he's on pace for 223 hits, 317 total bases, and only 39 strikeouts. Only 3 players have had over 220 hits, 300 plus total bases, and less than 40 strikeouts in a season. Do you want to guess who those 3 players are?
Say the parameters again.
Over 220 hits, over 300 total bases, less than 40 strikeouts.
When I think not striking out, Tony Gwynn is the first one that comes to mind.
Yes, Chris Gwynn's brother Tony did that in 1997.
I don't think Ted Williams struck out much. Is he one of them?
No, but that's a good guess. My hint would be this guy was on your Rochester Red Wings all-time team.
Stan?
Yep, Stan Musial in 1948.
Okay. And there's one more guy. 220 hits, 300 total bases, and under 70 strikeouts.
Yeah, I'll give you 2 hints. He did this in 1986, and he's the next Orioles manager.
The next Orioles manager, 1986. I want to say like George Brett or Wade Boggs, but I don't think they're the next Orioles manager.
Don Mattingly.
Oh, okay. Fair.
Could you imagine Orioles fans' reaction if he is actually named the next Orioles manager?
I don't give a shit who the manager is. Just fucking win games. I don't care if it's Jeffrey Mayer. Just win.
I thought you were going to say Jeffrey Dahmer.
No, Jeffrey Mayer's worse in my book.
Nice. You got a player of the week?
I'm going to cheat and just say that bullpen. And, the fact that they were good and also that Baker made it hilarious when they showed that graphic and gave up a home run immediately, like, it's got to be them.
Yeah, just for that game alone, that Charlie Morton game. Because the Orioles should have been swept this weekend.
Yeah.
I gave mine to Adley. I don't know if I believe that he has turned a corner, but it was good to see for at least 1 week. Not including Sunday. So far in June, he's 8 for 21, 5 runs, 2 home runs, 2 walks, 3 strikeouts. In 1 week of June, he doubled his May home run total.
That's not saying much, but it's a good sign, I guess.
He had half as many hits in the first week of June as he did all of May. And then I saw a fun stat today. Adley is slugging .606 against the A's in his career. That is 3rd all time amongst catchers against the A's. I didn't see who the other 2 were, but
wow.
So yeah, it might just be, he had a nice West Coast trip.
Yeah, he was in Seattle, which is got to be the closest team to his home in Oregon, right?
Yeah, that's his home turf.
I'm trying to look up and see what his best months are usually. Let's see. I'm in the splits.
It was definitely the first half of last year. You're not going to find anything after June.
Show me by month. All right, months. Yeah, so May and July are his worst months, and OPS wise, June and September are his best. So maybe he will have a good June, but then
Yeah, if he
dip
has a
down
good
in July.
September, and somehow they're back in this, that'd be nice to see.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see Agley just be like decent.
Yeah,
rather than
he's definitely
bad.
lowered the bar for himself now.
Yeah. Yeah, his OPS plus over the last 2 seasons is like average. He's at 98 this year and he was at 106. Yeah, 104. He's 4% above average over the last 2 seasons. And this is a guy who's a 2-time All-Star.
Yeah, I wondered that how many All-Stars he's going to end up with, because he was basically making it on his name. And
well, now Raleigh's going to blow him away in the voting. So
right. And his play had earned All-Star things too, but he was very marketable. But how marketable are you if your team is in last place and you're not doing well either?
right. I mean, he seems like a nice guy and he's got a personality, but yeah, if you're like a mediocre catcher on a kind of crappy team, nobody's going to care about that.
There's no way I would extend him.
I would for a very team-friendly deal right now.
Like 4 years,
like 50 million or something.
Yeah,
that might
there's
be
no
too
way
much.
he's taking that.
Yeah.
I saw an interview with Dan Duquette on, I think a Stan the Fans YouTube page. It was recommended to me. My YouTube knows I like Dan Duquette. So. But Duquette said he would give Adley a couple more months to figure it out, and if he didn't, he would turn to Basayo.
I think that's the big thing. If Basayo didn't exist or if he played a different position, it'd be like, oh yeah, Agley will stick around. But now there's like a real question of do we?
Like, is Adley... This is why I wouldn't extend him. Creed Williams is having a very nice AA season as well. You could have a catching future of Basayo and Creed Williams.
Isn't Creed like one of those classic kind of squat, like toady looking dudes? I don't know.
Yeah.
I just don't trust guys like that.
Yeah, I don't think the Orioles trust him either. But I also don't trust the Orioles to give out a big contract to anybody.
He's built like Alejandro Kirk, you know?
Yeah.
They don't
Well,
have
the Blue Jays paid him.
They don't have his height. Oh yeah, 5'11", 225. Like that dude is a tank. Yeah, I don't know.
I think he's Rule 5 eligible after the season too, so they have to make a decision there. I have good news, bad news from the Tides doubleheader in Louisville today. Good news is 5 Tides pitchers combined to throw a 7-inning no-hitter. The bad news is in the other game, Chase McDermott, 4 1/3, 5 hits, 5 earned runs, 4 walks, 4 strikeouts, 1 hit batter, 1 home run allowed, 89 pitches, 47 strikes.
Dude can't throw strikes. That's awful.
Can't throw strikes.
Who was that guy? Drabowski? Mo Drabowski. He's like the old mythical fireballer that the O's had years ago. That was his thing. He threw hard as hell and he couldn't throw strikes.
He was in the all-time Orioles series we did. I think he was on your team.
Was he? Or maybe
What
he's
did I
not
do?
the one I'm thinking of. No, shoot, that's not the one I'm thinking of. Orioles pitcher.
Oh, the Japanese pitcher?
No, that's Fujinami.
Yeah, I thought there was like another guy you found too who was Fujinami like.
Yeah, I think I'm not thinking of Drabowski. Delkowski. That's what it is. Not Drabowski. Delkowski. That was his name.
Steve?
Yeah. Yeah, so that is who McDermott is without the crazy velocity, I guess.
All right. Okay. All right. Yeah, we're going to take a quiz and wrap it up. This is Star Wars or MLB. Can you determine if each player is a Star Wars character or an MLB player? There's 20 questions, 20 minutes on the timer. There's no way we're going to take 20 minutes.
Shouldn't be that hard.
No. And neither of us are Star Wars fans, though. So that's why I think this could be interesting.
True.
I've never seen anything after the original 3.
I remember watching episode 1 because it came out when I was a kid, and that was like all the rage. And even back then, I was like, this kid sucks at acting.
Anakin. Was that Jake Lloyd?
I don't know the guy's name.
I think that's his name. I don't think he had a good experience from Star Wars fans. They're a very reasonable bunch.
I bet.
Here we go. Bo Bichette, Star Wars or MLB?
We know he's real.
Coleman Traber.
Coleman seems too much like a regular name. I'd say baseball.
It's Star Wars.
Really?
Kyle Katarn.
That's another one. Are there guys named Kyle in Star Wars? I thought they were named like Anakin and shit. But
Yeah,
there's Luke, I guess.
This seems like a baseball name to me.
All right, let's do it.
Nope, Star Wars.
All right, maybe we will suck at this. I was wrong.
Emmanuel Doza.
That sounds like a baseball player.
I picture this guy on the Giants.
Okay.
No, just like his name alone. Not that I have a... If you told me Emmanuel Doza was a baseball player, I'd be like, yeah, for the Giants.
Sure. Let's try it.
I'm going to hit Star Wars, though. Yep, that's correct. Xander Bogaerts.
Okay. All right. So the baseball ones are just really obvious. Is it just going to be like, if we don't know who he is, it's a Star Wars?
Cal Kestis.
Gotta go Star Wars. I don't know who that is.
Yeah, we might have figured out the code here. Ezra Bridger.
Star Wars. Don't know who that is.
That's correct. Jabba Chamberlain.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we found this out.
Tobias Beckett.
Star Wars.
Yeah, that sounds Star Wars-y to me. Yep. Derek Clivian.
Star Wars.
Star Wars. Lars Nootbaar.
Baseball.
We just saw him last week. Wes Jansen.
Star Wars.
If you had to pick what team Wes Jansen played for, though, where would you place him? I would say the Rays. Like, he's a Rays relief pitcher.
I was going to say Royals, but fair enough.
Star Wars is correct. Ooh, this is a good one. Akil Badu.
Oh, yeah. We know who he is, though. He's a real person.
Yep, he's a Detroit Tiger.
That's a Star Wars name, though.
Right.
That's how you could heckle him. Be like, dude, your name is from Star Wars.
You're a Star Wars character. Caleb Doom or Dume.
That's got to be Star Wars.
I think he would be the Tigers' emergency catcher, though, if he were a real baseball player. Star Wars is correct. Kyle Quantrill.
Okay. Baseball.
Son of Paul.
Yep.
Brewster Gratterall.
Ooh, we know him. He's a baseball player.
Yeah, I think he's one of the many Dodgers on the injured list.
Yeah.
Max Rebo.
Star Wars.
This is a Diamondbacks career AAA player, though. Star Wars is correct. Tariq Skubal, who we will see carve up the Orioles this coming week.
That is true. Third game.
2 questions left. Reese Hoskins.
We know him. He's real. He spells his name like a goober, though.
And finally, Dalton Varsho.
All right. Baseball.
Son of Gary. 18 of 20. 90% right. That's pretty good.
Yeah. All right. Once we figured it out, like, if it's a baseball player, we definitely have heard of him.
That's a fun quiz, though.
Yeah. It shows how we know dick about Star Wars, and I don't feel bad. You know, about a year or two ago, this guy on my hockey team in the locker room one time, we were just chatting, and he was like, I think I'm going to start trying to watch all the Star Wars, like, in order. Because, like, I've never done that. And I was like, you know what? Like, there's such a big cultural thing. Like, maybe I should do that. And I put on episode 1, and, like, I was 5 minutes in, and I was like, I can't do this. Like, I need to turn this off. They were swimming underwater and had these, like, goofy things they stuck in their mouth to breathe. And I was like, this is the dumbest shit. I can't do it.
Yeah. I don't like sci-fi at all. My experience with Star Wars is I saw the first 3 movies in the 80s and like fine, whatever. They didn't really have much of an impression on me. And then they started getting re-released in the late 90s, early 2000s, and a bunch of my friends were like, "Star Wars, we're going to see Star Wars." So I was like, "Yeah, I'll go see Star Wars." I remember them from when I was a kid. And I'm in the theater and I was just like, "Oh, I don't like this."
Yeah, I don't like sci-fi at all either. And my wife does, so that's a big sticking point. I like when we're choosing things to watch. She watches all that stuff when I'm not around.
Yeah, thankfully my wife doesn't like Star Wars or sci-fi really either. Yeah, so speaking of Star Wars, what do you got for Media Corner? You watch anything good non-science fiction-y this week?
I watched the Netflix Tylenol Murders little miniseries. They never found out who did it. It's pretty disturbing, but yeah, that was scary. But that's why the pill bottles that we buy come in the packaging they do, was because of that. With like the foil seal on the top and like the special twisty or it's not the top itself, it's the plastic that goes around it that you have to break to open it. Those things all were made after this happened.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out. I'm getting Netflix next month when Happy Gilmore comes out.
Right.
We're coming up on the end of our HBO Max run. Finished season 2 of Bookie, season 2 of The Rehearsal, which I mentioned earlier. That was incredible. I went to a Virginia Beach United soccer game.
Oh, that's interesting.
I misread the schedule, went to the women's game by mistake, but they were pretty good.
All right.
They were pretty good. Like, at first I was like, oh no, wrong game. And then 10 minutes in, I was like, this doesn't matter. They're good.
Have you done that before? Like gone to a game?
Yeah, they are a USL 2 team. If you're a soccer fan, you probably know what that means.
I'm
not
heard of
exactly sure. Yeah, I know that they had a USL team here in the
and that's like the
mid-2000s.
AAA, right? Like the level below MLS.
Yeah, and then USL 2, there's like hundreds of USL 2 teams. And I guess they're starting like a relegation format.
Okay.
I did buy season tickets for this Virginia Beach United team a couple years ago. It was only like $50 for like 5 tickets or something.
Okay.
But then they were renovating the stadium the one year, and I was like, they didn't have any of the seating. They had temporary bleachers across the other side. Somebody talked the city of Virginia Beach into building half of a soccer stadium in like the late 90s, and they told them, we'll build the other half when you get your MLS expansion team. Spoiler alert, there was no MLS expansion team.
Right.
The city has half of a stadium in a field.
So it's like just seating on one side?
Yeah, it's just seating on one side. And this Virginia Beach United team plays there now. But yeah, it's fun. It's like very close to me, which is nice.
Yeah. Nice. It's something to do.
That's about it. I watched some of the NBA finals, but of course I turned it off before the buzzer beater because I thought it was over.
Oh, I watched a couple of Stanley Cup games. I didn't stay up for overtime last time because it went to the second one, but I saw the end of the first game. But
is it 1-1?
It's 1-1. Both games went into overtime. So far so good. Fun series.
Yeah. So that's it. Who we got this week? You got someone in the Tigers, right?
Yeah, O's are returning home to play the Detroit Tigers for 3 starting on Tuesday, and then they are welcoming the Angels. So a series where I expect them to lose and a series I expect them to win. I'm guessing I'm going to be optimistic and say they go 500 this week. I don't know if that's optimistic, but that's how I feel.
I'm not optimistic. I'm going to say 1-5. I was looking at the standings.
Are the Angels better?
I was looking at the standings. Remember last week I said they have to catch this team and then they have to get past the Angels.
Mm-hmm.
Since then, the Angels have been hot. The Angels, they're directly ahead of the Orioles now. And they're not hot. They've gone 5-5 in their last 10. But yeah, I'm not convinced that the Orioles are better than the Angels.
Yeah, I mean, I have no reason to think that either, but
get this. The the Angels are 18-18 on the road.
That's solid.
Yeah.
The O's are 12-17 at home. The Angels are 12-16 at home. The
Yeah,
Angels have
I
4
foresee
less
bad things.
losses, and they're 4 games ahead. So the O's can't even catch them if they sweep.
Yeah, I'm gonna package this together. If they are swept by the Tigers, then the Angels will take 2 or 3. But if somehow the Orioles can build up some momentum heading into that Angels series, all bets are off, and hopefully they can handle business. But after what I saw against the A's this weekend, I have no faith in this team.
Yeah, they don't deserve to win right now.
Nope. So we'll leave everybody on that positive note. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Yep, take care. Go O's.